He walked in chains, both around his waist and his ankles, Diane, and he did not say a word except to utter not guilty when asked how he pleaded to the 11-count state indictment. He appeared to keep his eyes forward, both coming and going, and did not appear to acknowledge the several rows of supporters, mainly young women, who came to see him in court. And outside here in court in front of me, Diane, there are also a few dozen supporters holding signs and chanting "Free Luigi" or chanting for health care.